What we're going to do is we're going to take an attempt to do a virtual lab. And so for the lab, I have pictures for your observations so that you'll be able to record what you would have observed if we were in the classroom when we did this lab, and then you'll be able to make the analysis and do the analysis, which is the more important part. And so the scenario for the lab, or this activity, is that I stayed up all night with the school cook to make cookies for every student in the school. I come in the next morning and half the cookies are missing. And I know that the cookies were in a locked room to which only 5 teachers have the key to. In investigating the room, I find that there is a white powder on the cookie trays. So I go around to talk to each of the teachers, and each teacher also had a white powder on them and in their room. And so I collected powders from each of these teachers to bring back to the classroom for us to analyze. Okay, and so what we did was we put a small amount of the powder on a piece of black paper so we could see the contrast because they were all white. And then we looked at them, each one, through a magnifying glass. And what we're looking at is, what is their color, what's the shape of their crystal, and their clarity. So shapes could be cubes, ovals, hexagons. Clarity, remember, is opaque, transparent, or translucent. After that, we took 3 beakers, and to 2 of them we added water, and 1 of them we placed an acid. And we added a little bit of the white powders to each of the beakers. And to 1 of the water beakers, we also added a little bit of universal indicator. Okay? And that would allow us to hopefully distinguish between the powders. Now, the sources and suspects, powder 1 came from Professor Quill, powder 2 came from Professor Lockhart, powder 3 came from Professor Lupin, powder 4 came from Professor Moody, and powder 5 came from Professor Umbridge. Okay, so powder 1, here we can see what it looks like under a microscope. So we can see its crystal shape, its clarity, and its color. Powder 2, this is what the water looked like after we added it to water. This is what it looked like after we added it to acid. And this is what it looked like when we added universal indicator. So pause the video here so that you can take your observations. Powder 2, we observed under a microscope, and we can see its crystal shape, we can record its color and its clarity. We add powder 2 to water, and this is what it looked like. We added powder 2 to acid, and this is what it looked like. And then we added universal indicator to some of it, and that's what we observed. So again, pause the video and take your observations. Okay, so here's powder 3. Powder 3 under the microscope. We added powder 3 to water. We can see there's still some powder at the bottom here, and then we see what the rest looks like. When we add it to acid, it's a little bit hard to distinguish, but these are bubbles. And then we have powder 4 when we add powder 3, sorry, with universal indicator. So again, pause the video, record your observations. Okay, so here's powder 4. We can get our crystal shape, our color, and our clarity. When we added it to water, when we added it to an acid, and then we add some universal indicator to it, and this is what it looked like. So again, pause the video, record your observations. Okay, here is the 5th and final powder. Here's what it looks like under a microscope. So you can record your crystal color, the crystal shape, and the crystal clarity. This is what it looks like when we added it to water. Okay. This is what it looks like when we added it to an acid. And this is what it looks like with the universal indicator. So again, pause the video, record your observations. And finally, the powder that was on the cookie tray. So we have the powder under a microscope, so you can get its color, clarity, and shape of the crystal. When we add it to water, when we add it to acid, and finally to universal indicator. So now that you have your observations, you can use these to identify both the professor that took the cookies. Remember, you're using the physical and chemical properties that we're looking at here. Use the information from the previous two lessons to identify which ones are physical and chemical properties. When you are identifying the unknown, remember you have to do a comparison. So you can't just say, oh, because it's the same. You have to tell me which properties are the same. So if you're going to tell me, for example, the cookie tray is from powder 6. I know there's no powder 6. You would tell me that it has the same crystal shape, has the same behavior in water. It has similar reaction with an acid. It might have the same color with the universal indicator. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to use the properties that are unique to identify the unknown. Okay.